there has been an awakening. Have you felt it? Check out my mug, it's pretty cool, right? The Mandalorian, Season 1. It's absolutely insane to think that it's now officially been over a year since this show has come and blessed all our lives and practically been the number one thing carrying me, aside from Avatar, Game of Thrones, the Lego movies for some reason, Cobra Kai, especially a lot of Cobra Kai, and Stranger Things again, and pretty much everything on Netflix and Disney Plus that's been keeping me hopeful and sane this entire year. But The Mandalorian has been like a quarter of all of that. So like, it's crazy to think that about a decade ago, when I was still barely 10 years old and still about not even a middle school by that point yet, that streaming services were not a thing of our lives. There was no such thing as a Netflix, no such thing as a Hulu. Was there even a thing called Amazon at that point? Was Amazon already a big thing? Especially still have a very vivid memory of my childhood watching the Nickelodeon ads of Netflix when they had this weird promotion with the beaver. When it was specifically at the time only US and Canada only, and I remember it was $8 a month. Do you guys remember when Netflix was still $8 a month? And for the rest of the mid 2010s, that's all it really was. Hulu would then come to heavily compete, but Hulu was really definitely more of the TV show kind of aspect of streaming services. Hulu was the place where you went to go watch your TV shows, and Netflix was definitely the place where you went to go watch your movies. And that's how it was for years. All the streaming services lived in harmony. It was all in harmony until the day the studios attacked. Every studio, once they realized what was happening, that Netflix was slowly dominating the industry, decided, hey, if they can do this, why the hell can't we? So first it was really Amazon. I remember the first big one, that because, I already had an Amazon account at that point, that they were announcing that they were going to make their own streaming service, that if you had Amazon Prime, you got to keep Amazon Prime Video. And that was the first true big competitor. And then everything went to shit after that. Sony thought that they could make their own with Crackle. What the fuck is Crackle? Is that even still a thing anymore? NBC, not Universal Studios, NBC Universal thought they could make their own streaming app. There's a DC. Did you guys know there was a DC streaming service? Disney would enter the streaming wars with their juggernaut Disney Plus, which was actually for the first time in years, aside from maybe Amazon Prime, an actual true competitor to the streaming giants of Netflix. The fact that the mega corporation that practically owned half of the planet at this point was coming in to compete in the streaming wars was a big deal. From the entire catalog of all of Disney's history, from the early Walt Disney shorts to their modern big blockbuster movies, to their other major studios that they own, from Pixar, Marvel, Fox that they recently purchased a few years back, and of course, Star Wars. That Star Wars was finally, for the first time in years, gonna be available on a streaming service. Now, this was a huge deal because, believe it or not, for years, Disney had been talking about, since they owned Star Wars since 2012, releasing the Star Wars films on Netflix, which is where they did put most of their movies for years before they made Disney Plus. And I always hope for the day that I can get together with my friends or have a watch party with them on PlayStation and watch every Star Wars film on Netflix. They had the Clone Wars already on there, and they even had some of the new films on there for a while, which is why I just didn't understand why they didn't do it. And clearly it was because for years Disney was planning to do something big like this, and now they did. The entire Skywalker saga, every single TV show they ever had, the holiday special, no, they didn't do that. But it wasn't just the Star Wars content that we already knew and loved. They were also planning something else. They were releasing a new original TV show. Disney's very own original online-only show. That show was The Mandalorian. Directed by Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, and everyone fucking else that I just can't remember, though I love you all, that is not an insult. And Disney's first big jump into original online-only shows with Star Wars was just absolutely something exciting and yet scary. Because, I hate to say it now and bring it up, but it is no secret that these last few years for Star Wars have been up and down. It's been a roller coaster ride. When it all started, it was absolutely just mind-blowing exciting that Star Wars was coming back in the first place, let alone and coming back in such a big way. And then the infamous divide and civil war that happened when The Last Jedi came out, and then now recently, last year, when Disney Plus was releasing their new service, the great finale to the Skywalker saga and sequel trilogy with Rise of Skywalker. And look, I still really do enjoy the movie, and I think it was a solid film, but I'd be lying to you guys and to myself if I didn't say I was disappointed. Yes, as still good as I still think the film was, and as incredible as I still think these new characters have been to the franchise, 100%, the finale to this, not just new trilogy, but legendary saga of its Star Wars fan base last year was definitely not in its strength, in its best. It was very divided. It was absolutely very disappointed, and everyone was very just uncertain of the future of Star Wars. So really, the whole world was looking at Disney, staring down at them very violently and aggressively to see what was this big new plan for a live-action, online-only show. And if you clearly haven't told and realized by the shirt, the fucking mug. Isn't this mug amazing? I found it at Walmart. It was $8. It's, as you clearly heard me say in the intro of me talking about the show, that The Mandalorian did this special thing where it wasn't just one or even two directors working on the entire project. They decided to get a diverse amount of directors from all different parts of the film industry and even of the Star Wars franchise itself, with legendary animator and director Dave Filoni from the Clone Wars TV show to work on this show, and each one of them direct a specific episode. This entire show has not just been a love letter to the Star Wars community, it has without a doubt been not just the most original new fresh take on the Star Wars franchise, but one of the best new things to come out of Disney's Star Wars, period. From the performances, Pedro Pascal himself just steals all that, from the breathtaking special effects to, ironically, the reason I say homage and love letter to Star Wars community, Westerns practically dominated Hollywood in the 50s and 60s. They were like the MCU superhero films of that era, and especially in the early 60s when Sergio Leone changed the industry forever, and George Lucas and even Steven Spielberg, and the entire crew themselves, Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. Fun fact, they're all best buds. They all have admitted that most of their influences of their early childhood that made them want to do film were those specific films and that specific genre of filmmaking, which, if you pay attention to a lot of early Star Wars, is clearly what they're based off of, which is why the original Star Wars film was heavily based in the desert. It wasn't just a cool aesthetic, it was a clear homage to the original Westerns of their childhood. Which is why it's so interesting to finally see Star Wars really go back to that. From the first episode, which is the first one I'll be talking about, the very intro just oozes of classic westerns, you know, the iconic lone gunman formula of him walking alone into the bar. And even with the finale of the first episode being a classic Western showdown, Pedro Pascal and Taika Waititi, incredible duo, fighting off as many goons as possible with all the possible gadgets that they can in an abandoned desert town. It's just so, it's screaming Western. And then, to bring it all around, not just being a classic homage to the Western genre, it finally introducing one of the biggest main characters this show and the Star Wars universe has ever come to love. The introduction of everyone's favorite little adorable little bug, Baby Yoda, or otherwise known, it's really the child. We just call him Baby Yoda because we're just a bunch of losers that can't differentiate any other character, and it's the only other Yoda we've ever seen. That first episode within itself made this entire show. From pretty much giving you and explaining everything that you have to know of what this world is, the events that are taking place, it being right after the events of Return of the Jedi, or 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and what the state of the Outer Rim has become. And finally, for the first time, actually getting to explore more of the culture of the Mandalorians. That, I mean, everything about it just oozed of just classic Star Wars with a brand new Western twist. And it sort of absolutely made this show for the next 7 episodes to come absolutely fantastic. Every episode truly got better, and I mean that, aside from the Dave Filoni one. I'm sorry, if I had to say that the only criticism I would really give to the first season, it is the clear fandom-obsessed, fan-servicey, up-the-ass episode that clearly it shows that Dave Filoni, you know, this being his first time really directing and working on something live action, it being very distant and very distinct from the 3D animated CG heavy Clone Wars TV show, it would be something that he probably didn't want to screw up on his first try. So playing it safe, just, clearly just going back to Tatooine for one episode to go back and see all the iconic locations we all know and love. It was fun, it was nice, but ultimately that's really the only episode that, if you really look back at the first season, doesn't really advance the plot at all, or you really never truly learn anything aside from that mechanic lady that does come back in the second season. So that's good, but I really feel like they just made that to give that episode a reason to exist. So it's it really is the most forgettable episode of the entire season. Aside from that, even with all that problem that I just said, The Mandalorian now represents everything that modern Star Wars gets right, and it's practically now the poster boy of new Star Wars. And it's just absolutely incredible to now see these creators and these directors get together, who have clearly been fans of this franchise for years already, since they've worked on past projects before, finally bring new, fresh, original, and still exciting, quality-heavy new projects to the forefront of the Star Wars franchise, to get millions of new fans and even old fans absolute joy and excitement to this franchise once again, and finally even be competing with the Marvel giants and proving that Star Wars still 100% is here to stay and has a lot more to say. I'm just so happy that finally, after all these years since The Force Awakens, we get a new piece of Star Wars content that everyone can altogether agree is absolutely incredible, and at worst, absolutely incredible. There's just no debate about it. Star Wars The Mandalorian gets a 9 out of 10. An absolutely amazing intro into this clearly soon-to-be long-running online series, and absolutely incredible poster beginning for new Star Wars. Guys, that was my review for Season 1 of The Mandalorian. What do you guys think of the show? And if you have not seen it, for God's sake, what are you doing? Watch it now! And I know I promised you guys that I would come back by doing a gaming video with the PlayStation 5 itself on my channel. But if anyone hasn't noticed, and as I said in the beginning, you kind of can't really get one right now. At all. So, I'm sorry to say, guys, but don't really expect new gaming content, at least for a month maybe, or even just a few more weeks, until finally I get my hands on a new system at all to be able to make new content for. So I'm just really glad that I finally get to release anything for this channel again, and especially to talk about one of my brand new favorite shows of the last 5 years. How many times have I said that in the last 5 years now? But I'm serious, guys. I've had such a blast doing this review. I'm clearly such a big Star Wars geek. Is there anything else that you guys would like me to talk about Star Wars? Are you guys excited for the new season of The Mandalorian? As always, guys, stay safe. We're still in the middle of a pandemic. As I said, for the God's sake, stay home. And happy Thanksgiving. Take care, guys.